Hello and welcome to the Airline Weekly Lounge. I'm your host, Gordon Smith, and I'm joined as usual by co-host Jay Shabbat. In this week's show, we're rounding up the winners and the losers from US earnings season. Hey, Jay, how's it going?
All right, Gordon. How's it going?
Doing very, very well. We are going to take a look at the US earnings scoreboard for Q2 of 2025. Sounds a little bit dry, but this will be a white water ride through the ups and downs and all the in-betweens of the US airline industry, from Delta at the top. I don't think there's any big spoilers there to, let's see who's at the bottom. We'll go into a bit of detail, Jay, and we are aware that we have discussed some of these carriers on previous episodes. So we'll give a little bit more time to those that we haven't been able to discuss in detail earlier in the podcast. But let's go from top to bottom to top. What do you prefer? Let's start at the top. We've already given the game away. Delta came out with a very impressive operating margin. Tell our listeners, from Delta down to XXX, how did Q2 go for the US airline industry?
Yeah, thanks, Gordon. I will do that. And before I begin, let me just say we are speaking on Thursday, August 7th. There's one major airline that hasn't yet reported. That would be Spirit Airlines. We'll get their numbers eventually. They are almost certainly going to be loss-making, but we don't have an exact number yet. So we'll stick with what we have. Pretty much everybody else, all the other publicly traded U.S. carriers. As you mentioned, Gordon, Delta came in at number one at just over 13%. United not too far behind at just under 12%. So those are the two big guns at the top there. Right behind them is Alaska Airlines, which I think we said in a recent podcast that they what was the term? We didn't we make a reference to a Scottish band? Now my memory.
Simple Minds.
Simple Minds. Yeah, what did we say?
Don't you forget about me?
Don't you forget about me? Yeah, right. That's what it was. Because
from the Breakfast Club soundtrack as well.
Is it from that movie? Okay. So Alaska is sometimes overlooked. You know, we talked about Delta, United kind of running away with the show, and the domestic carriers kind of wallowing in all sorts of trouble. But that's not the case of Alaska. They are predominantly domestic, yet they earned a very hearty 9% operating margin. And that would have been higher were it not for Hawaiian. Hawaiian Airlines is still, they did say Hawaiian turned profitable last quarter for the first time in a while, but I believe the margin was very, very low. It was just above break even. Now, that's no reason to panic. Alaska purchased Hawaiian with the intention of eventually turning around, but not overnight, and also realizing a whole bunch of other synergies. And that's another topic. But Alaska comes in with the bronze medal. So just short of the bronze, Allegiant, they came in at 8.6%. So just a couple of fractions of a percentage point below Alaska. This is important to note here, excluding the loss-making hotel operations. Allegiant is selling its Sunseeker Hotel down in Florida. That will be gone. So I'm just looking at the numbers for the airline operation itself, and they did very well at 9%. Allegiant is another one of those, hey, don't forget about me kind of airlines, because they are not one of those low-cost carriers that are suffering as so many other U.S. LCCs are. They're doing quite well, and they're doing well with their very unique model, which we won't go into now, but they pretty much have the sort of, let's call it the infrastructure to fly only when there's demand. What every U.S. airline is pretty much tell you right now is that demand is good during the peak periods and pretty lousy during the off-peak periods. That was the case during the second quarter anyway, into the start of the summer. And Allegiant, well, they don't have to fly in the off-peak period when they don't want to. So they just have that cost structure and those they're of course sort of set up for that. That's their model. Okay, now we're getting into where are we now? Is it number 5?
Number 5, yeah, American.
Number 5, American, 8%. Okay, so not terrible. What we talked about earlier is that American, and yes, you can say that 8% is disappointing relative to Delta and United. Remember, they are less exposed to that booming intercontinental demand that United and Delta are enjoying right now. But I would say even more so than American's disappointing, let's say, deficit in Q2 to Delta and United, I think more worrisome was their guidance for Q3. And I think we've talked about that on previous podcasts as well, that they expect a loss, perhaps a loss. So they have a sort of a guidance, a range. But at the lower end of their guidance, they might wind up with a third quarter loss, which would be pretty alarming. I mean, that's, for a carrier of that size in what's generally maybe less of a peak quarter than it used to be, but still pretty peak for American to lose money or barely break even. Not good. Okay, next we've got Sun Country at 7%. So we're getting down the line there. Now, Sun Country was the only airline of these that I'm talking about today that actually improved their margin year over year. So everybody else's margin actually declined, which is kind of surprising given the fact that oil prices are fuel prices quite a bit lower this year than they were last year. Yet everybody's earnings digressed, with the exception of Sun Country. So 7%, good showing there. One last thing I'll say about Sun Country is that they do tend to peak in the first quarter. They have those, as their name suggests, they have those very, sunshine oriented routes to Florida and Phoenix and whatnot. Those do especially well in the first quarter, not as well in the second. So Sun Country, very healthy airline. Southwest is now we're getting towards the bottom here, Gordon, and Southwest only 3%. So big drop off between Sun Country at 7 and then next up Southwest at only 3. We've talked about Southwest, many issues as well. JetBlue behind them at just 1%. And now, do we have to do some kind of like Surgeon General's warning, Gordon, or some kind of? I don't want to scare the children here. We, I think, I think we need to just warn everybody. This is going to be ugly here.
The
But
red inks come out.
here comes the red marker. Yep,
Yeah.
Frontier negative 8%. So just a really, really, really horrible quarter for Frontier. And that was, by the way, 11 points worse than it did in the same quarter last year. Although last year, the earnings were puffed up somewhat by some gains by selling and leasing back aircraft. So that discrepancy may have not been not as large as it seems. But bottom line is Frontier's bottom line stinks.
That's language we can all understand, Jay. Let's take a little look at Frontier. What did Frontier give as reasons for that disappointing result?
Yeah, well, it was just a really weak quarter in terms of unit revenue. So it's very much a demand issue. They mentioned Las Vegas as one particular market that's been notably weak. And I'm not sure that's a huge surprise. We've seen some headlines, or I've seen some headlines anyway. I don't have tourist arrival numbers in front of me, but I think Las Vegas has seen some softness in their tourism industry. And so demand is weakened. You would totally expect that airlines would feel that as well. And Frontier is very, very big in Las Vegas. So that was one area that they, that I think where they suffered that particular market. They said overall that they went into the year in January, go back beginning of the year. That month of January, their unit revenues were up 20% year over year. And then all of a sudden, by March and April, they were actually down year over year by a bit. So huge, huge reversal. So a lot of that, if you'll recall, we've talked about it as well in past episodes, where during that spring period, call it March and April, there were all those new tariffs that came out. There were all those, government job cuts at the federal level from Doge and Elon Musk and that whole saga. During that period, and stock market went way down for a while. That whole period of time was very weak for consumer confidence, and that you imagine had even a disproportionately worse effect on an ultra low cost carrier like Frontier. So that the numbers show it in terms of where their RASM went. They did say that RASM turned slightly positive on a year-over-year basis in May and June, and also into July. Now, here's the good news. They did say that August RASM numbers look really, really strong. They're up a lot. So, in fact, I'll use the quote here. They said Barry Biffle, the CEO, said RASM has turned "quote unquote" wildly positive. So we're living on the wild side here, Gordon. Where the RASM is going wild now, and they said they said September was also, seeing that same kind of very strong inflection. And remember that other U.S. airlines too have said that bookings have strengthened in the past couple of weeks and maybe month or so. So not entirely out of the blue, that comment. But that's where they stand. They're obviously making that difficult transition from being a very super, price sensitive type squeeze them in, fill up all the seats, whatever you can get, to a more premium oriented um, uh, approach where they're actually have seats with more legroom now and bundled products and things. So that transition, you have to believe that there's some kind of transition period where they may not realizing full benefits of that. But yeah, it's you kind of sum it all up, and it was just a really really awful quarter.
I think every major airline CEO should have an alliterative name. Barry Biffle is fantastic.
I love it.
I don't know. You can create your own J whatever it may be. I think we had IAGG Airlines last week in
I
the show. You were going to take me down to Argentina and get me setting up an airline down there.
I always remember the old Norwegian did that, and they it blew up in their
Oh
face. Remember
yeah,
that?
I
Yeah,
do remember
Norwegian,
that. Yeah, that was
Argentina. Well, I was thinking
fantastic.
when you said Barry Biffle, I was thinking that movie Gordon Gecko. Remember from
The Geico Gecko.
no, isn't it wasn't that who was the Wall Street movie? Am I saying it wrong?
The only gecko I know is Geico Gecko,
I guess
and
we probably have to cut this part out because I don't know what I'm talking about.
not the Wolf of
Actually,
Wall
which
Street.
no, 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 no. What's the Charlie Sheen movie? No, not Charlie Sheen. Michael Douglas. He was Greed is Good. Doesn't ring any bells. Okay, I probably maybe my reference is off. I thought his name was Gordon Gecko.
Yes, 1987 film Wall Street, and then there was a 2010 sequel, Wall Street: Money Never Sleeps, with Michael Douglas. You would think, with my namesake, that I would be aware of that cult reference. Sadly, that was me in nappies around that time, so
So,
didn't quite make it into my nursery television.
oh, that's too bad. But I was right. Gordon Gecko, right?
Gordon Gecko, absolutely right. I apologize
Okay,
for
okay. You had me feeling
assuming you're
there
on
like a
speaking about an insurance mascot instead.
yeah.
Um,
Hey, that would be a good name for that insurance mascot though. Like Gordon the Geico Lizard. That would be good.
Gordon Geico Gecko. That's hyper alliterative.
Gordon the Geico Gecko. I love it.
Let's get back to airlines, Jay.
Oh man. Okay.
Yeah, sorry. Come on, let's drag it back. Allegiant, to give a little bit of a teaser for the Airline Weekly newsletter description, you've said for Allegiant Q2 success, but Q3 distress. What do we mean by that?
Right. So a little bit like American, but I don't want to, make the make the too close of a comparison there. Two very, very different circumstances. But Allegiant did have, as I mentioned, a very solid second quarter with that 9% margin. They did say though that they were going to lose money in the third quarter. And I'm doing this from memory here, but I think the range for operating margin was between -3% and -6%. So if I have that right, that is, yeah, that's pretty rough quarter. Now Allegiant does, that's their worst quarter of the year seasonally, so that's important to note. It's not like American should do better in the third quarter. American has a lot of stuff that does lousy in the third quarter too, like Florida, a lot of Florida, Miami, Caribbean, but they also have Europe and lots of other stuff that should do well. Whereas Allegiant is like super super heavy on Florida in particular, which Florida is just an empty state for tourism when it comes, when you come down to August and September. So third quarter, it's normal that they would do worse. However, in their earnings call, they, perfectly open about it. They said, look, we used to make money in the third quarter, maybe not as much as we, make in the first and second, but we got to get back to the point where we're making money again in the third quarter. So they know that they're not happy with where that's going. But let's at least partially forgive them. It is their very worst quarter.
It sure is. Let's discuss this a little bit more in part two, Jay. More Allegiant detail, including what the executives said on the possibility of consolidation in the market. But before that, a quick reminder that if you are enjoying the show, please don't forget to rate us 5 stars, give us a positive review, whatever you need to do so we can continue to spread the word about the Airline Weekly Lounge. And a reminder of that email address as well, podcasts@skift.com. That's podcasts with an S at the end for any comments, questions, or concerns. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in part two discussing more of the US earnings scoreboard for Q2. Hello and welcome back to the Airline Weekly Lounge. I'm Gordon Smith, joined as usual by Jay Shabbat. Before the break, we were discussing Allegiant. Let's pick up there, Jay, because we got a little bit of color on the Allegiant call regarding possible consolidation. Would Allegiant consider merging? What was the executive reaction to that question?
Well, I appreciate you inviting me to talk about consolidation, my favorite subject. I think all of our favorite subjects, right? Everybody who's in the business loves to talk about mergers and acquisitions. So here
You
we
get the
go.
popcorn out? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, get it ready. So the Allegiant, yeah, the question came up, are they interested in a merger? And the answer was as you'd expect. Nah, we're kind of focused on our business. In fact, they specifically said one of their big focuses uh, was on getting that third quarter profitable. They also have an outstanding pilot agreement, and they have some things they want to do on the ancillary side with their credit card program, et cetera, et cetera. So they have Maxes coming in. They have a lot going on. However, they did give that caveat that quote unquote as we look to drive more shareholder value, whatever that looks like. We keep a close eye on it all the time. So it's something that I'm sure they haven't totally ignored. And that's the same thing for Sun Country as well. In fact, if you don't mind, Gordon, if you'll humor me, I'll go through all of these airlines we're talking about and what their position might be vis-a-vis consolidation. Will you grant me that privilege?
I would love to. Yeah, I was joking earlier about the popcorn, but that actually sounds like a perfect popcorn conversation accompaniment. Salty or sweet?
So, yeah, I think it was salty.
Go salty. All right, go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah,
with butter.
consolidation.
Butter.
Oh, I don't. We don't have that on this side of the Atlantic. I think that's more of an
That's an
American.
American thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Lo-
all the
Load up with
unhealthy
salt
stuff.
and butter.
We
Yeah.
get stuck with all the unhealthy stuff. All right.
Yeah. Let's go consolidation.
Okay, so let's assume Delta and United probably out of the picture. They're performing well on their own, and they're giant, so they probably, you have to believe, wouldn't be involved in any kind of domestic consolidation. Alaska, they've done their Hawaiian deal. Have to believe that their only possible the only possible deal they might be involved in would be with, let's say, an American, if they decided to merge somehow, because they are already partners. Very low probability stuff, very unlikely, but that is, you could maybe see that those two networks kind of fitting together. Um, and I'm going down the list here in terms of like how we rank them in terms of operating margin. But Allegiant was next. We just talked about Allegiant. Who might they be interested in? Well, obviously their business model is so unique. But Sun Country also seems like they're even at. Let me take out the word also. Sun Country, even more so than Allegiant, seems like they'd be willing and able to do a merger if the right deal came along. They've basically said as much in their earnings call. And Jude Bricker came right out of his mouth. He's the chief executive. Now remember, Jude Bricker was, played a big part in building Allegiant into what it was today, what it is today, when he was president of that airline. So maybe there's some relationships there. So Allegiant and Sun Country perhaps being fitting in as one airline, maybe, who knows. That's one possibility. Let me just mention Spirit here. They're, of course, as I mentioned, haven't reported yet as we speak. But they're kind of dangling out there. Frontier very much wanted to buy Spirit, as you remember, over the past 3 years. They first made a bid in 2022, and ultimately, after several attempts, were unable to do so. but that is, Spirit is still out there, and it has to be, you know, you'd have to assume it's not very highly priced, given its recent bankruptcy, given the fact that they're surely losing money, given the fact that they never really restructured their operating costs, just their financial kind of debt costs and things. All of those reasons suggest that there may be a bargain to be had. An airline like Sun Country and even Allegiant, you have to think any deal that they would do would be heavily premised on getting attractively priced aircraft. And unfortunately, right now, even though that some of these airlines that I'm talking about are, their valuations are probably very low. We know, for example, JetBlue's stock price is very low. I think one of the problems is that the aircraft prices are very high right now. So that could be an impediment to the deal. But if you're a Sun Country and you can access Spirit's, very attractive A320, A321 Neo fleet for a bargain, then that's something you might consider. Uh, Going down the list here, American, I think American has to be in that mindset of, well, we kind of need to do something very bold to uh, to correct our recent deficit with Delta and United, or let's say chronic deficit with United and Delta. So they might,
Especially after the unraveling of the Northeast Alliance.
and the unraveling of the Northeast Alliance. So you might think that they would be perhaps entertaining something additionally with JetBlue now that the regulatory regime is different with uh, a new people in Washington. So maybe that's on the back of the mind. And I can't stress enough. I said it once before, but I'll say it again. That all this is just we're playing games here. This is totally speculative. It's
It's high summer. It's time for games.
it's yeah, that's right. That's it. Thank you for excusing me on that. I just wanted to make sure people weren't thinking, our listeners weren't, expecting to read in the newspaper tomorrow that they're, wow, 4 airline mergers yesterday. No, I mean, nothing, nothing imminent here. We're just,
You say that, Jay. It's always dangerous recording a podcast a week in advance.
yeah, that's right. Oh yeah, I get it. Well, hey, we could edit. We do. We're not live.
We're not live. We're not
We could
live. Believe
edit
it or
this whole
not.
thing out if,
What about JetBlue, Jay? Because the commercial partnership that they've recently entered into with United, it's not a merger. Johnny Garrity was very clear that it's not even the first step towards a merger. Nothing like it. The DOT recently gave that the green light as well. That's pretty much as good as done. That would surely preclude JetBlue from getting into bed with American or anyone else. I can't imagine there's much goodwill between the American and JetBlue at the moment, but surely that sort of takes them off the table for anyone else if they're getting a bit closer to United, or maybe not.
yeah, you would think. I mean, it is. I was looking today. It's again Thursday, August 7th. Stock currently trading at $4.34. In January, it was trading at about double that. And you could probably go back to, let's see, real quick Google search here. Back a few years ago, it was about $21 a share. So it's an airline that can be acquired rather inexpensively. You're right. I think JetBlue is for now focused on their new partnership with United, but that is a rather limited partnership. So if the right deal came along where they could really kind of address some of their strategic deficiencies, it's something that they might consider. Of course, a deal could be hostile. It could be, Southwest could come in and say, just make an offer that JetBlue and its shareholders couldn't refuse. American could perhaps try that. Southwest is an interesting one. I think we've talked about them and their potential, merger possibilities. Southwest obviously has a lot on its plate right now with all of the changes that it's undertaking. It would certainly welcome, however, JetBlue's international routes. It would probably welcome its Airbus fleet to diversify away from Boeing. And it would probably welcome its sort of premium, sort of upmarket branding. So there definitely are a list of reasons. There is a list of reasons why Southwest might find JetBlue attractive. So I think to sum all of this up, I think we kind of went through all of the different airlines, and a little bit of brainstorming about, where some of their mindsets might be right now. But I think the reason why we're even talking about all this and speculating about it is because there is let's say the environment for consolidation is ripe because for a bunch of reasons, right? We have a lot of airlines underperforming, earning rather low margins. We have several airlines that are traded at very low valuations. We have Spirit that just came out of bankruptcy. We have airlines that have literally mentioned, like Sun Country, like I mentioned, literally mentioned that consolidation could be an option. Mr. Barry Biffle, whose name you love so much, Gordon, he himself said that the industry needs consolidation. I think he said that on multiple occasions. So that's kind of the context of why we're talking about this. It does kind of feel like the moment is right. So we'll, whether anything happens, whether actually there could be, deals that get done, whether any prospective deals are actually approved by regulators, that's, whole other question here. But so did you finish your popcorn yet? Is your bucket empty?
Yeah, I just picked a kernel out of my front tooth. It was perfect timing, Jay. Getting down to the seeds at the bottom.
Very
Uh,
good.
that's uh, that's an interesting perspective, and I think it brings us into the fall season quite nicely, Jay. Because I do feel like there's a bit of consolidation in the air. We discuss it at length about Europe and elsewhere in the world, but in the US, I think there's at least one more deal to be done before the year's out. I've got something in my bones, but let's see if that comes true.
Something in your bones and something in your teeth. I have that. Sorry, I can't stop laughing. I have that image of you with a toothpick. I have.
Well, it's always that moment when you're really enjoying the popcorn, and there's some that haven't quite popped properly, and you think, "Yeah, I could probably still get that," and it's always a bad decision. For anyone that's listening, Jay, who says, "Where's Breeze?" David Nealman's Breeze, that's privately owned, so we don't have the full details. That's right?
That's correct, and Avello as well. I didn't mention SkyWest, which I do have their numbers if you would like them. They did extremely well, 16%. SkyWest is, I just didn't mention them because they're kind of a different breed of airline. They are very large, very important, but it is more of a, let's say, like a capacity for hire type business where Delta, United, American, Alaska hires SkyWest to fly smaller jets for them. So a little bit of a different business, but they did do very, very well. And they actually said demand for their services has never been better. So it's yeah, that side of the business is going very well. So glad you mentioned that. But you're right, Breeze is not publicly traded, so we don't have their data. We will get some government, kind of headline numbers. We'll get their operating margins eventually for Q2. Same thing with Avello. And then we have a couple other regionals that we talked about, Republic and Mesa, that are merging. They're not public either, so Mesa was, but we don't have any data on them yet. But I think other than that, we covered all the big guys.
Thank you for that, Jay. I just want to inform our listeners we do have 2 weeks off. I can't believe it. Skift let us be unshackled from our desks, Jay and I, for 2 weeks in August. So, regular readers of the Airline Weekly newsletter, there will not be an issue on the Monday 18th of August or Monday 25th of August. But I'd want to direct you towards Skift Research's amazing airline reports. As an Airline Weekly subscriber, you get access to all the airline news on skift.com. Which will still be coming out throughout the month of August, but also Skift Research's airline reports. So go check those out, research.skift.com. And if you want to join us in person, we've got 2 exciting events coming up. I actually got 3 or 4, but just 2 to keep a particular eye on because they're happening relatively soon. The Skift Global Forum, that's happening in New York City in mid-September. And then the Skift Aviation Forum, that's 3rd of December off the top of my head in Fort Worth, Texas. Go to live.skift.com for all the details there for the latest agenda, programming, and importantly, to buy your ticket as well. Airline Weekly subscribers get a free in-person ticket to join us at the Aviation Forum. You get to see Jay and I in person, which I don't know, Jay, is that a pro or is that a con? Is that a push or a pull factor? The fact that we'll be there, I'll let our listeners decide.
Definitely a pro.
Definitely a pro. There we go. Speaking of pros, thank you to Jay for joining me this week. And thanks, as always, to our producers, Monica and Will, wherever you are in the world. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Bye for now.
Whether you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts, please make sure to subscribe, rate us 5 stars, or leave us a positive review. This really helps us get the word out about the Airline Weekly Lounge, so we can continue to bring you this podcast every week, absolutely free of charge. And if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to the Skiff channel and hit the notification bell to find out whenever a new video drops.